I'm telling you, no! The chief snapped angrily at Detective Kim, who was wincing at his anger.
Chief, you told us to pursue leads on the Dracula killer, and this is a lead.
A lead? The chief laughed. So some biker punk with a rap sheet as long as my forearm tells me he knows where Dracula will hit next, and we just trust that?
They'd been at this for the past 30 minutes. After meeting that punk Ricky, Kim Min-seong couldn't shake the conversation from her mind. Sure, maybe Ricky was a filthy dirtbag, but he'd had a lead. A real lead. He knew a potential target, and after doing a little personal snooping, found out that Mike Barnes did have a history of illegal number running, gambling dens, and race rigging. Just the kind of punk that Dracula would gun for. Though he hadn't hit any of Barnes' personal properties or gambling dens yet, she knew that if she could get ahead of him, she might catch him. But only Ricky knew the details. Even so, she knew better than to trust the say-so of some street punk like him. So she wanted backup for this. She wanted to approach the chief to organize a SWAT team to accompany her. And the minute she had explained where her information had come from, he'd nearly blown his top.
We use inside informants all the time to catch criminals, she replied, her body shivering a little.
It was a sign her adrenaline was shooting up. Her heart was beating and her voice was trembling. She was getting afraid and angry at the same time. She was never very good at arguing, especially not with the chief.
Oh, don't start with me, Kim, the chief snarled. For God's sake, you can't compare our informants on the street with this shit stain. This Ricky fellow sounds like a fink and smells like a problem. He had no respect or fear for the Shield, which means he doesn't fear the police. He's used to getting his way and not having to face consequences.
It means he's arrogant, Kim shot back.
It means he's experienced, the chief retorted. Arrogant criminals don't last long enough to laugh at the Shield. But once you've avoided the law long enough to know a thing or two, those punks would laugh at the commissioner himself.
All right, then what do we do? Just ignore this lead?
This isn't a lead. It's a setup. The matter's dropped. Understand? I'm not risking you or other members of this department on this fool's errand.
But what if he's telling the truth? Kim finally cried. What if he really does know where Dracula would hit? This could be our chance to get ahead of him. Mike Barnes is every bit the scum we know Drac would go for.
The chief huffed in frustration and then began grumbling into his knuckle. A habit of his when he was wanting to argue but didn't have anything smart to say.
Even if he is on the level, which I doubt, I suppose Barnes himself might be at least worth a glance.
Thank you, Chief, Kim sighed with relief,
until the chief raised his finger.
But you are going to go home and sleep.
But Chief...
Before she could argue, the chief heard his phone ring. He looked to it and growled.
I have to take this. Wait a moment.
He took the phone and held it to his ear.
Yes, how can I... Oh, yes. Yes,
he answered slowly. Kim's eyebrow raised a little at how the chief seemed to go a bit more rigid. Was it the commissioner? Maybe the chief of D's?
No, of course not. I was just talking to my detective about that. Yeah, she's right here. Of course. Yes, sir.
He then hung up the phone and shook his head as if he'd just gotten out of a shower and was getting used to the now chilly air.
Sorry. Wow. We're feeling all of a sudden.
Who was that, sir?
Not important, the chief snapped defensively. As I said, I need you to go home and rest, detective. That's an order.
But why? I could still be of some...
I wasn't asking, he snapped. I brought you onto this task force because I trust you. I know you're not your brother. I know you're nothing like him. But taking tips and advice from criminals and common thugs, you tell me, are those the actions of a good cop or someone just like your brother?
Kim went stiff and bit her lip in embarrassment. The chief glared her down, then behind his desk.
Chief, you think
I think it will send the wrong kind of message. I'm doing this for your own good. You need to step back, take a deep breath, and think about this. There's a right and a wrong way to find leads. And taking them from scum off the street... This conversation's over. Go home. Rest. Forget about this Ricky fella and let us do some investigating into Barnes. If anything turns up, we'll contact you. Deal? The chief then picked up his phone before she could answer. Now I have to return that call. You're dismissed, Detective Kim.
Kim sighed and shook her head, knowing there was no use arguing anymore. Besides, she felt positively exhausted from her adrenaline rush earlier. She turned and walked out of the office, closing the door behind her to head back to her apartment. Her apartment was nicely kept, more clean than probably was typical of a New York apartment. Kim smelt the soft smell of eucalyptus as she walked in. Seems her fragrance plug-ins were working. She inhaled slowly and let the aroma fill her up as she tossed her bag on the couch and took off her jacket. She groaned, still feeling the fatigue of shouting at the chief. She wasn't used to that. Well, no, that's not entirely true. She'd raised her voice a few times at him before, and it always ended the same. He would win the argument. She was terrible at arguing, and even interrogating. She was always too polite, never wanting to rile up anyone. She usually let her partners or other cops handle that kind of stuff. Anytime she started, she'd just get worked up and then stutter or sound silly. In fact, in this case, she was surprised she'd lasted that long. She plopped down on her recliner and groaned. The gentle sound of claws on panel met her ears as well, as a small white cat came scurrying over, mewing sweetly in greeting.
Hey, Noelle,
Kim smiled, patting her lap for the cat to climb up. She did so swiftly, curling up in Kim's lap, as if she were just a simple cushion. Kim stroked the animal's soft fur as it purred, and she sighed.
At least you're not going to argue with me today, right?
No answer, which was how she liked it.
God, I need a break. No, what I need is answers.
Kim looked around and groaned. His place was so clean. It made her mad for some reason. Why did she always have to have things so clean and orderly? Why couldn't she be more like her co-workers and be more slovenly? They all had the respect of the department. They all could live more laid back and laugh beside the vending machine and not get ugly looks just because of who her shitty family was. She winced at the thought of her brother and closed her eyes.
I thought this was it, Noelle, Kim mumbled. I thought this Dracula killer case would help me redeem myself. Did I try too hard, maybe?
Noelle didn't answer. She just purred.
Chief Davis is right. No good cop would trust someone like that biker punk.
Noelle's head turned and gazed up at Kim with big blue eyes that made her smile.
What? You think I was right? You think the chief is just a big meanie? Is that what you think, Fuzzy?
Noelle meowed in response, and Kim tickled her fur, making her squirm a little.
Aw, thanks, Noelle. What would I do with that? Wait a minute.
She paused a moment and then thought back.
Ricky said something about Barnes laying low. He was afraid of Dracula, or else he wouldn't be laying low.
Her eyes narrowed and brushed hair out of her face and scratched Noelle's ear absent-mindedly.
That means Dracula's already contacted him. Which means we're running out of time. Even if Ricky is a dirtbag, he's my only way to get close to Barnes.
Noelle pawed at Kim to get her to keep petting her, but Kim was already lost in thought.
This Dracula. He follows the same pattern, she whispered. First he sends a warning. If the target doesn't react to the warning, he hits an area of personal importance to the target. He does this 1 or 2 more times, and then if no change happens, we find the target dead, usually impaled, blood drained. She stood up as Noelle let out a soft hiss, frustrated at not being able to stay in her lap. If he's already contacted Barnes, then what were his demands? To turn himself in? Well, Barnes hasn't contacted the police. Ricky said that Barnes was getting scared. That means he's tightened up his security. So how many warnings has he gotten? And why haven't we heard anything about it?
She walked to the window and stared out at the skyline. The sun was starting its slow descent. The city lights would begin to come on soon. Just the kind of night a vampire would choose to go hunting. Or at least someone pretending to be a vampire.
Ricky's a creep. But he's the only one who can get me ahead of Dracula, she whispered.
She then looked down at Noelle, who was swishing her tail back and forth curiously.
If I do this, I'm taking a big risk. Maybe the chief is right. Maybe I'm acting too much like my brother.
She bit her lip and her eyes narrowed in frustration.
Damn it all, what do I do?
She stared out the window, pressing her forehead to the glass so the cool sensation ran down her body. As the sky began to turn a soft and warm orange, her eyes caught the light of the sun, and she felt a shiver run down her spine as she saw the reflection of herself in the window. She looked, for the briefest moment, somehow otherworldly, wrong somehow. What monsters lay just beyond the glass? She giggled to herself at just how silly she was being. There are no monsters. There are no vampires or creatures of the night. There's just a stupid vigilante, a murderer who was breaking the law, and it was her job as a good cop to catch him. I'm not my brother, she whispered. One way or another, tonight I'm finding Dracula, she turned. Wish me luck, Noelle, she said, turning to grab her coat. I have a date with a vampire tonight. Noelle simply meowed after her as she began walking towards the door. The chief was locked up in his office with his phone ring again. Without bothering to check caller ID, he just put the phone to his ear and sighed. Chief Davis? Good evening. The voice sent a chill down his spine. It caused his blood to curdle and his mind to go fuzzy. He felt his jaw go slack, and for a brief moment, Chief Davis forgot everything. Forgot who he was, forgot where he was going, what he was thinking. All he knew was that his master was speaking.
Yes, I was expecting your call. Forgive me, I have the information you asked for, and I made sure no one will interfere with you tonight.
Was anyone interested? The voice asked.
A detective, Detective Kim Min-seo. She's on the task force. She somehow got a lead that pointed her to Barnes.
Oh?
It's nothing to worry about, Master, Chief Davis cried. She's a good cop. I told her not to get involved with your business. She'll listen to me.
How did she find out about this?
Some punk biker, she said, talked to her about it, said he knew. I told her not to listen to people like that. Definitely not worth it. Best I could do to throw her off. I sent her home for the evening. She won't be a problem, Master.
When I hang up this phone, Chief Davis, you will go home and get some sleep. In the morning, you will resume your duties as normal. Your detective, Min-seo, will not be clocking in. Create a reason.
Master, I said she would...
I know what I said, the voice hissed back. Now you will heed what I have said. Is that clear?
Of course, Master. I live to serve you, Master. I will do it. I'll do it, sir.
Good. You will not remember this call. You will only vaguely remember Detective Kim Min-seo calling you to tell you she's very sick and won't be coming to work for some time.
Yes, Master. Absolutely, Master. And what shall you do, Master?
I will go and prepare. I have a feeling I shall be entertaining some uninvited guests. The phone then clicked off, and Chief Davis shivered, his eyes blinking rapidly as if he'd been daydreaming.
Damn. I need to stop zoning out like that.
He then noted his cell phone in his hand. Was he on a call? He remembered the phone ringing.
Oh, right. Kim call, yeah. Gotta pull myself together. Stay sharp, Davis. Shame about Min-seo getting sick, but she could use a few days leave. Poor girl works herself too hard.
He gave a yawn and walked on, thinking about Kim and how overly ambitious she was.
We'll catch the Dracula killer and his mole in no time. She just needs to learn some patience and stop taking advice and direction from strange people off the street. Some time in bed might help clear her head.
As he walked to the elevator to head down to the parking garage, the sun finally set on New York City.